to financialize, militarize, public health. There's also a enforcement arm that emerges in 2021 and 2, where they start trying to equate speech with violence, essentially, to the point where DHS defines dissenting from government narratives as a form of domestic terrorism. So this is part and parcel of what Epstein was involved in. And by the way, his communications with Prince Andrew, are the most concerning as well, because he's getting information that is essentially should be probably a state secret, but he's using that information along with what Mandelson fed him in real time in order to, make billions of dollars in theory because of the financial implications of some of that information.
I don't even know what to make of Jeffrey Epstein at this point anymore, except that this guy was like the devil himself. And that there's no way he's dead. I mean, that's just the one thing I keep coming to. The more and more stuff that has come out in these files, I just think this guy was too powerful. There's no way he's dead. That he definitely got himself out of that situation. And there's so many questions on that. But so basically they start this project. They're like, wow, there's a lot of money in here. We got to make sure we make all the money we possibly can. And we set this up correctly. They use Ebola as kind of a testing or starting point. Then they develop it even further, and then COVID. And suddenly we ended up with the chaos of COVID, which really, it wasn't actually chaotic at all. It was quite, the people that had this already planned out seemed to know exactly what they were doing and guiding us all like sheep into the state that we were in, essentially. And do you think that, the big concern that many of us have is that they're going to do it again? And it seems like if there was this much money to be made, yes, of course, they're going to do it again.
Now, let me interrupt here again, because Bill Gates met with Donald Trump right after he won his second term. These people are all in this together. Trump would have never met with Bill Gates in Trump Tower if they weren't. They were continuing the plan. Let's keep watching.
Well, that's a great question. In fact, the other part we haven't even addressed, which directly answers your concern, is the fact that what happened was that in 2017, these discussions came up showing essentially that, there are these reinsurance products that were developed. Swiss Re is one of them. And what they're doing is they're insuring the insurers. So let's say if there's an act of God or war or pandemic, and, even like those insuring events or travel start to get hit, there's an insurance product that ever covers the insurers themselves. And this is being laid out along with things like pandemic bonds the World Bank introduces, which also are a big problem because, they essentially have very specific triggers, and they're called parametric triggers. So if there's this many people that are diagnosed or this many people that are dead, which we know through COVID-19 was a complete farce because of the inadequacies of PCR and false positives and the removal of requirement to even test for COVID for those who were pronounced dead, right? The national vital statistics requirements shifted so you could have a motorcycle accident. They were still pronouncing people dead from COVID. Why was that? Why was there such a drive? Everyone was, starting to think, okay, this is just absolutely insane. Now we see why, because I believe, because the financialization of this, creating an entirely new vertical of assets, which is, again, pandemic bonds, to drive. Everyone was starting to think, okay, this is just absolute. You have a motorcycle accident, they were still pronouncing people dead from COVID. Why was that? Why was there such a drive? Everyone was, starting to think, okay, this is just absolutely insane. Now we see why, because I believe, because the financialization of this, creating an entirely new vertical of assets, which is, again, pandemic bonds and insurance policies that profit a certain group in order for, them to be paid out.
So lots of money, more systems being implemented. They're definitely going to do this again. I'm afraid of how they're going to do it. I don't know if the world will go along with another pandemic anytime soon. It would have to be, I think, something, but then again, Bill Gates wants to shove his vaccines into all of us. So it's got to be something like that, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, that's the crazy thing about bonds and insurance policies that profit a certain group in order for, them to be paid out.
So lots of money, more systems being implemented. They're definitely going to do this again. I'm afraid of how they're going to do it. I don't know if the world will go along with another pandemic anytime soon. It would have to be, I think, something, but then again, Bill Gates wants to shove his vaccines into all of us. So it's got to be something like that, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, that's the crazy thing about the fact that rhetorically, individuals like Bill Gates have been telling us, right? And how many people at the WEF that, it's not when, it's not if, it's when. They're constantly seeding this, that there will be another pandemic. Now, if we look back and we really understand, the origin of the patents that went into, COVID technology going back, 20 years. And then now we look at the other key pieces that were filled in with these email releases, is that there's just an institutional gravitational pull towards further pandemics.
Now, take a moment to take your breath, and I'll play the rest of this, and understand that the majority of the people that have come to this channel were trying to warn people about Bill Gates. So you guys were on the right side of history. You were talking about things that had not happened yet. You knew what Bill Gates was trying to do. And remember, the media came after us. They're like, Bill Gates didn't say that he wanted to genocide the world and blah, 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 right? Well, understand that all of that's controlled. The fact checkers coming out trying to say that. But we all knew, because we walk in the spirit. We see past these people. We see through their eyes. We see what they're really about. So you guys are amazing. So all the work you've done is now being confirmed in the Epstein files with proof of emails between Epstein and Bill Gates. So good job. Your crown is in heaven because you fought for the truth. And now all the people that called you crazy for not liking Bill Gates and thinking we were all crazy, thinking he wanted to kill all of us and make money off of us, now you can hold your head high and say, well, all you got to do is check the Epstein files. That's exactly what he was doing. Now, let's keep going. Let's finish the rest of this, because we got to take the wins when we can, right?
Whether there's pseudo pandemics or not, the incentive is so great. In fact, the real issue, Kim, is that nation states no longer truly have sovereignty when you subscribe to a system that gives, centralized body. It could be Tedros, right? Who, when you think about Bill Gates' relationship with the WHO, right now, I believe he may even be the primary funder now that the US has left, right? Is that there's one individual that gets to determine, whether or not the whole world locks down in that model. The whole world gets forced to participate in deadly, mRNA technologies. And so that's the system that thankfully the US just pulled the plug on ostensibly. So I think with growing awareness, shows like this, because has this been even addressed in the mainstream media? I have not seen a single report of any of the topics, right? You have to go to X or you have to go to these shows to get the truth. That silence speaks volumes about how their entire system is now being revealed for what it is. And it's in the receipts. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is all just laid out historically with great clarity and all through legal disclosures. So this is all in the public domain now.
Well, I encourage everybody to read your piece. You said it's a 6-part series?
Yeah, since the original release, I can't tell you, I haven't slept very much. But the thing about this situation is that when you see each email reveal another part of this submerged iceberg, now we have 6 parts. Actually, the 6th part will be released probably tomorrow. And it further reveals the UK's role in, like you had pointed out, it's not just his ties to the CIA or Mossad. It's really the UK Crown, and it's also the UK, foreign intelligence services, I believe, are most really just implicated in this network that he was at the center of. And that's why we're seeing the entire UK political system go through seismic changes right now.
The thing that's really the most disturbing about your investigative piece, which, by the way, this is, when I read this, I was like, this is like, do you know Whitney Webb? This is like Whitney Webb level investigating. I mean, this is fantastic stuff that you've been doing with this.
Thank you.
But it really does show how screwed we are. And I don't, I hate to say it that way, but it's bad enough when we think the Epstein scandal, was a blackmail operation to gain leverage for like the state of Israel or something. But it's worse when you see, oh no, it was bigger than that. And it's controlling so many aspects. It wasn't just the control, blackmail is one aspect, one tool that can be used. And it seems like he was using so many different tools in order to really genuinely control the world. And to, this is why I just wonder, it's like, I'm not particularly a religious person, but I'm starting to think he's Satan himself, and he's like figured out how to prey on all of the, like what are they called? The deadly sins, right? To prey on all of those deadly sins and that people, the desire for money, and there's lust and there's greed and all of these things. And it just seemed like he took control of each of those things and individuals. He pinpointed it, figured it out, like what is it that's going to motivate this person, and was able to wield influence and power over them and over entire industries. And when it's not just about foreign policy, but now we see it's about COVID, pandemic policy, and all of these other things. And then, like you say, the mainstream media is not covering this. Why not? Well, because they're all implicated. A lot of politicians are not saying a word. Why not? Because they're all implicated. This isn't a left and right issue. When you realize everybody's implicated, I don't know how we get out of this. I don't know how we rise up. Yes, we do what we can. You write your pieces. I do my show, right? We're trying the best that we can. But when it's like the mainstream is burying it because they're all in on it, this is just a different...
Well,
it's quite frightening.
I will say one thing that's encouraging is that I actually found that CNN had just gone over all of the emails that I released in this first part of the series, not attributing, but I was really impressed because that's the first time I saw an organization like CNN actually look factually at what are intrinsically damning, emails where it reveals the entire system.
I'll put a link to this. I don't want to take away from Kim Iverson's views on this. You guys can watch the rest of this on her channel. Again, I don't often recommend channels, but in this case, she's been all over this. And there are very few mainstream truth channels that are really wanting to cover the Epstein files for some reason. And she's been on it. So I wanted to do that for you guys. Let's put the link here. Whoops. Okay, why did that paste that? Okay, that's not the right one. Okay, so I will put a link to that in the pinned comment. Okay, I'm back in the chat for a little bit to discuss this for a few minutes before we pop off of here. I know that was a lot of information, but the guy knows his stuff and basically exposed the planning essentially for Ebola was the test run and COVID was, and all of us had been saying this. We'd all been saying this from the beginning. We knew the progression of events. We covered Ebola. I told you this was that this was all about the mark at some point, governance, using using pandemics to take our rights. Remember, we had all these discussions, and now it's all been confirmed. So, all right. Yeah, Bill Gates even says he doesn't even vaccinate his own children. So there you go. It's all about taking control of the human race and then making more money off of us. Now, we haven't even got into what's in the juice yet. Another aspect to this as well. So we will be looking through the files to see what we can find about that. Okay. All right. Well, if you guys have anything else that you want to add to this discussion or anything that you know about, please put it in the comments. I do read all the comments, so I will look through the comments and see what I can find as we continue to open this thing wide open. Now, what can we expect in the next couple days? Well, there will be more bombshell revelations because now the files have been unredacted. So that we will see congressmen and women coming forward and sharing what they've seen in the files unredacted. A lot of it may be related to Trump. There may be some things about Trump that we have not heard yet because he redacted his own names from the files. He literally broke the law that was put in place, the Transparency Act that was supposed to give us the information. He literally broke the law. Now, will he be impeached for that? I don't know. I don't have much faith in our system. But just know that that is the case. If anyone tries to smokescreen you and say, yo, he's not in the files, all you got to say, or if they try to say you have Trump derangement syndrome, all you have to say is Trump broke the law, the Transparency Act, and redacted his own name out of the files. We all knew he did, but now there's proof of it. And say, why would he do that? Why would he do that? And that should end any conversation that anyone wants to have with you. So, all right. All right, you guys, I'm going to pop off of here. We'll be back tomorrow. I love each and every one of you. And thanks for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day. Much love.